Before we dive into the HTML, let's talk a little bit about how ASP.NET 5 serves files. If you remember from the last module, we have a startup class that's responsible for setting up ASP.NET 5. The boilerplate for an empty project created for us this app.run call. And this app.run simply returns hello world regardless of the request that comes in. We saw this in the last module that whenever a request comes in to the web server, it simply returns hello world. And this is true no matter what the path is after it. If I do foo/bar.clux, we're still going to get hello world in every case. Because that's what the configuration is saying here. Go ahead and return it. It doesn't have to be just something static. We could certainly create our HTML in here as well. So here we have a very primitive piece of HTML, and then we can just return it with the writeAsync method. When we do that, we can see that our code will return whatever we have as that HTML structure that we set up here. This implies something that's very important. ASP.NET 5 is really giving you the ability to respond to any sort of requests. This context parameter that's being passed in knows about the query string, the message body, the headers of the request, so you can make some decisions about what to return here. Ordinarily, you would never write this code. You wouldn't handle all this code inside. We would be leveraging MVC6 and other parts of the framework to do this for us. One of the first things we'll want to be able to do is serve static files. So let's start that by creating a new index.html page that will represent the root page that we'll get when someone visits our website. Over here in the project, there's a folder called webroot, and it's a special folder. You can tell because it gets its own special icon. Webroot is where all public static files that are going to be served will live. So that if you have images and CSS files and HTML and PDFs and zip files or whatever you want, this folder is where they will exist. Ordinarily, if we attempt to retrieve something like startup.cs from the server, our web server won't know anything about them, so it won't be able to deliver them back to the users. And ASP.NET is leveraging that. So in www.root, I'm going to go ahead and create a new file. I'm going to use the add new file extension that we talked about in the last module to just create simple empty text files for us to type into. In this case, I hit Shift F2 to create a new file, and I will just call it index.html. And I'll go ahead and copy our HTML here. And I'm going to go ahead and add a little something, a little tagline here, so that we can tell that we're serving this in fact file. Now if we attempt to show this in the browser, we're still getting that original world. And the reason is that every request that comes in through startup is resolving it by running this code. So let's go ahead and comment out this code because we don't want to have that level of control in this case. We want to leverage these other frameworks to do that work for us. So now if I refresh it, it's going to get this file from the www.root directory. Now what's interesting here is this behavior we're seeing right now is really dependent on how we're testing the application. We're testing the application using IIS Express. And by hosting this in IIS, you're getting that static delivery of files directly through the web server itself. But if we were to change this over to the web, which is the DNX solution for self-hosting your website, and often will be the one that will be executed when you're dealing with cloud hosting, when we try to run it, it's actually using port 5000, so I'll go ahead and put 5000, and we'll see that when we get it, we're actually getting a not found. That's because in most cases when you're delivering your ASP.NET 5 applications, it's not going to serve static files unless you specifically allow it. We're getting it with IIS Express because IIS knows about static files and how to deliver them automatically. But when we're self-hosting or hosting in another environment, we cannot depend on that. And so there's actually a piece of middleware that we can put here in the configuration to allow us to do that. This app object that's passed in has a method in it called use. And use, you can pass in a piece of middleware, some functionality that is executed when requests come in. And in our case, if it sees that the static file exists on disk in the www root, it'll deliver it in all cases. we're going to use this application builder and call a method on it called useStaticFiles. Now there's a problem here. We get the little squiggly because static files isn't something that's included in the project by default. It's an extension, it's another package, it's another NuGet package that has to be included in our project. And luckily, Visual Studio is smart enough to give us the option to add this package to our project. When we choose to add this package with the little light bulb, it's actually going to change our project.json dependencies and add this as a new element. The way that the project.json works here is it's the name of the NuGet package and then the version we're looking for. Because we're currently in beta 6, that's what we're seeing here. So now if we build it, we're still running the web version. So if we run this and refresh our page, we'll see we're still getting the file not found. And that's because static files isn't going to handle the default file mapping for you. But if we go after the exact file /index.html, we'll see we're now correctly getting it. You're going to want to call the useStaticFiles extension method of app in order to serve these. But if you forget to do this, you'll find problems when you finally deliver it to the cloud. Most likely, most Visual Studio developers will end up just testing it with IIS Express, and that will mask this particular problem. But in every case, I will go ahead and call this useStaticFiles for pretty much any web project you're going to be building, unless you're specifically not serving any static files. That may be the case for APIs and some other things, but for most websites, you need static file delivery. Let's talk more about building a rational HTML page next.